most mines closed over 100 years ago, there's still a fair amount of pollution caused by them, and so the aim of the project is to reduce the impact from those mines for the benefit of the environment as well as the economy.
The one project is the Water from Abandoned Metal Mines project. We work in partnership with the Coal Authority, the Environment Agency and DEFRA. In the UK, there are 1,500 kilometres of watercourse affected by metal mine pollution. In the North East in specific, 330 kilometres of watercourse. So the project's aiming to identify the sources of pollution and find solutions to reduce the impact of metal mines to benefit the environment, such as your river ecology, and also the economy by removing a lot of the metal-rich sediment which is travelling down to our estuaries.
At the Garrigill site, the material that came out of the mines and from the dressing floor was dumped next to the river and formed a large spoil heap with very steeply sloping sides, and through the middle of this is a culvert. Over the years that's sort of eroded and more of the material sort of slipping into the watercourse, obviously into the pollution. So to address this issue, we decided to connect the two sections of culvert together and isolate them from the watercourse. This would allow us then to regrade the slopes into a safe angle and sort of maintain them for the future and prevent further diffuse pollution into the watercourse. Some of the challenges, it's the location, it's up in the North Pennines, quite high up. The site itself is very difficult to get to, so the initial part of the works all had to be done via crane, so that was a man riding crane, people were craned into the site. Some of the other challenges, the site is obviously, as you can see, it's a very sort of a beautiful part of the world, so it's got high visual amenity. It's also, there's several designations on the site. It's a scheduled ancient monument, so we had to get consent from Historic England for the works. So these are sort of the challenges we had to deal with.
By reducing the metal content from the rivers, we would hope to improve the sort of numbers of fish and aquatic life in the ecosystem. It's about making a lot of small changes that will add up to a big impact, and we could be talking tens of kilometres of river cleaned up as a result of the works.
Once the pipe was in, we were then able to sort of regrade the slopes and get better access to finalise the works, providing the slope stability and the head wall as well.
It's almost at the next chapter in the mining history of things, and I'm quite proud to be a part of that. And it's really starting to write that story now and put things in place.
Sometimes I think we forget the sort of legacy of sort of mining. When the mining stops, the problems don't stop. They sort of go on to the future. And obviously, it's quite a large challenge sort of addressing all of these.
One of the pieces of work we're doing is to build a check weir in the river, and effectively that'll sort of slow the flows down, and that'll help a lot of the sediment that's in the river to accumulate behind it. I mean, that sediment comes from a couple of sources on the West Allen, one being the tailings dam, which was sort of effectively the waste material from the mining process, but it still had like a high metal content, and that's sort of left on the site, as well as a sort of a range of other spoil heaps. When it rains, and then just sort of through general erosion, that'll end up in the river, and so the check weir itself is designed to capture some of that sediment before it makes its way downstream and start to impact the river and the Tyne estuary. What we're looking to do is to reduce that pollution for the benefit of the environment, and it reduces the amount of sediment at the Tyne estuary, which can build up in the shipping berths, so it can help with that respect as well.
The Nenthead site, it was part of the Nenthead mines. I think for quite many years it's been fine. I think some large storms started to erode the bank, sort of bringing the water in contact with the mine waste, and obviously then that releases the diffuse metal pollution into the watercourse. The solution we've come up with there is to put a line of gabions, which are stone-filled baskets, to stop the water eroding the toe of the bank, and that also allows us to regrade the slope and prevent further material slipping into the river as well. So again, it's providing another long-term solution to the problem. The bank has become home to a colony of sand martins who sort of dug their nests into the sandy bank. This was in risk of being sort of washed away as well, and them losing the habitat. So as part of the works, we're providing sort of an artificial sand martin habitat as part of the gabion wall, which again will provide sort of a long-term home for them when they return in the spring.
Along the West Allen, there's around 40 kilometres of watercourse which is polluted by abandoned metal mines. And the issue we have with Coal Clough is the surface water, which readily erodes the spoil heaps and the dressing floor and picks up a lot of metals which get into the system. The metals have a negative impact on the river ecology, so your river flies and fish populations. It's also transporting a lot of metal-rich sediment down through to the South Tyne. The main sources of metals in the watercourse are cadmium, lead and zinc.
Starting right at the top of the valley, the surface water comes off the hill and runs into the discharge coming out of the mine workings. It's very difficult for us to actually know how much contamination is coming from which particular route, so we need to put works in place to separate those flows so we can then monitor the individual flows properly and find out where the worst contamination is coming from. And then the water then runs straight across the existing access track. So we need to make that physically stable so that the water goes back underneath the track again in a proper culvert. And then we're putting in place a concrete canvas line channel to hold the water in its correct alignment and transport itself straight down to the bottom of the valley without coming into contact with contaminated materials and without causing erosion. There's a big spoil heap right next to the river, which is very steep and is unstable and has slipped. So it has a big exposed face of spoil material that continues to fall into the river periodically. So the idea is to trim that back to make it a more stable landform and to provide it with a geotextile cover to cover over the exposed spoil and allow vegetation to become established on it so that it's stable in the long term. And there's also, once we get onto the bottom of the site, the floodplain, there was a big area of spoil where the old dressing floor of the mine was, and so that spoil has all been moved back up slope away from the river so it will be stable in the long term, and some big rock rolls put along the bottom to protect the toe of the slope. Then hopefully specialist plants will recolonise and form an area of interesting calaminarian habitat on that area. There are a number of constraints to the whole works around environmental issues, including the rare plant species and the lichens. The boulders that were found near the river had rare lichens identified on them, and they've been placed away from the river so they can continue to be undisturbed. And there were also traces of water voles had been found along the river throughout the site. So it was recognised that they were going to have to be protected during the works. And then finally, the site is an old mine site, and there were features of archaeological interest likely to be uncovered by the works because we're having to dig channels and move spoiled material around. That exposes archaeological remains which have all had to be recorded and assessed by an archaeologist.
The work at Coalclough is one of the stages of the works on the West Allen catchment, which will hopefully lead to a dramatic reduction in the metal pollution reaching through to the Tyne estuary.